Okay, so we are doing the Great Divorce. We have Chris is kind of new here today, so basically C.S. Lewis, who wrote Lion, Witch, and the Wardrobe, and other books that you probably heard of. Yeah, yeah, the Narnia
I've heard of it.
series.
You know,
Yeah,
I've heard I heard of it, but I never read
yeah.
anything about it. I've heard.
And so pretty famous, contemporary with Tolkien, with J.R.R. Tolkien, who wrote Lord of the Rings. And so, C.S. Lewis wasn't a Christian, became one, and kind of just wrote a lot about the faith. And I think this book is really interesting because it is fiction, but it's the great divorce between heaven and hell. And like I said earlier,
Yeah.
hell.
I glanced at this,
Yeah.
I read some of this where you get to know the people individually.
Some of the characters in it.
People who are vain, people who are this,
Yeah.
people who are that, and actually you know people like that in real life. So.
Yeah. And that's kind of like this book takes you through basically each chapter, except for chapter 6 coming up. We basically meet a new one of these people, and the reason why I love this book is that it really causes me to be introspective about myself, and it's just kind of clever at showing it to you. It doesn't beat you over the head with it, with all of that, but it just kind of shows you. It's like, oh, would I return to the bus? Would I rather reign in hell than serve in heaven? Like that. And so that's what we're kind of going through here. So what we've seen is you got all these people on this bus, and I think they're kind of thinking solid thoughts, and they fly out of heaven, and the bus is like the magic school bus. They fly out, and they kind of land in the outskirts of heaven, and the ground and the grass and everything is so solid. That even when they're trying to, he's trying to pick a daisy, it like rips the skin off his fingers because it's so solid. So, yeah.
Going through this now for a second time, I am struck by the fact that Lewis does not blatantly provide a description or a prescription for Christianity. What he does is he's knitting together a very lovely story, and you, the reader, figure it out. But it's not clumsy. He's not obvious. He's using all of these knit and curl kind of things. So at the end you say, oh, at least that's what I said. Oh,
Yeah.
I think the second time around you get a lot more understanding.
Yeah. Read it through again. Like he's setting stuff up at the beginning. It's like, oh, that's really fascinating. So in chapter 5, we meet. All right. So chapter 4. Who did we meet in chapter 4? That was the big ghost, right? That he was obsessed with his rights, and that he met someone that he knew who had murdered somebody else, and that murderer was now living in forgiveness and with the murdered, forgiveness of the murdered, and he's actually come out of the mountains, out of heaven, and he's willing to be a servant to the big man who's obsessed with his rights for as long as he wants. And that's something that I kind of sat with most of the week. He's willing to be a servant for as long as the guy basically needed him to be a servant, and so, but the big guy's like, nope, I don't need your. I think the words were bloody charity. Like I don't need that. And you see that he kind of goes back to the bus. He'd rather have his rights down in hell than anything else. So, did you have any thoughts at the very end of 4 there? It doesn't actually say that he goes to the bus, does it?
No, it doesn't. I interpreted it the other way. But
Oh, did you? So how did you take it? That's interesting.
I don't. It's been a while since I read it.
I know. It's
I vaguely remember that he walks on complaining constantly, but
He says, "I'll go home."
he says, "I'll go home."
Yeah.
Yeah. So so it's right there at the end of chapter 4. So let's see, I have this starred. It was almost happy now that he could have, in a sense, threaten. And that's what I'll do, he repeated. I'll go home. I don't come here to be treated like a dog. I'll go home. That's what I'll do. Damn and blast the whole packing. And in the end, still grumbling, whimpering, also a little as it picked its way over the sharp grasses that made off.
Sounds like he was feeling really sorry for himself.
Yeah, it sounds like he's feeling real sorry for himself. Like, wow, why doesn't anyone think about me? You know, type of thing there. And so, all right, chapter 5, we meet the apostate bishop, the intellectual. How else does it describe it? Like the big ghost? Is that what this one's called? No, it's not the big ghost. He's wearing the big gaiters, right? Is this the one where he's wearing the gaiters at the beginning? I can't remember.
Starts out with 2 lions, but I don't know.
Oh yeah, the 2 lions. Yeah, so let's talk about the lions. So the way that this chapter begins is, for a moment there was a silence under the cedar trees, then pat, 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 it was broken. And 2 velvet-footed lions came bouncing into the open space, their eyes fixed upon each other, and started playing some solemn romp. Their manes looked as just dipped in the river, whose noise I could hear close at hand through the tree, though the tree hid it. Like, why do you think those lions are there? Why does this come in over there? Like it's an interesting way to begin the narrative here. And what does he feel about the lions?
Like hid, didn't he?
He hid, yeah. He kind of gets away from them. But I think this is C.S. Lewis kind of showing I love C.S. Lewis's picture of creation before the fall, when creation is living in harmony, you know? And it seems like this is another picture of that, where the lions are presented as being kind of playful, almost gentle, right?
The lions have indeed laid down with the sheep.
Yeah. And yet there's fear with our guy. You know, he's like,
Kind of reminds you of Narnia, though, doesn't it? With the big lion.
Yeah. Like there's definitely a lot of Narnia going on.
Yeah, because he's post-fall.
Yeah.
The human is ghost. It's post-fall.
But yeah, they're living in the new creation type of thing, where there's like, it's kind of, you know, he's post-fall, but now he's in the outskirts of heaven. And he sees, and like you have this living in harmony again.
But that's why he's afraid, because he's not used to this stuff.
Yeah.
He also has yet to come to faith. The faithful aren't afraid of these lions.
Yeah.
Well, he's still working through this.
He's
I don't know, I'm
supposed
afraid of lions.
He's the bishop that was telling all of his ideas of what should happen.
Yeah.
He was the fat ghost.
Yeah. So
Bishop being the fat ghost, I mean, that kind of...
easy there. Easy there. You see that look?
Bad idea.
You see that look? Yeah.
I didn't say a word.
I need representation.
I already gave him my retainer.
I like that. That's so the way we're introduced to him is, close beside me I saw another of the bright people in conversation with a ghost. It was a fat ghost with a cultured voice who had addressed me in the bus, and it seemed to be wearing gaiters. Now that's the same type of gaiters where you're like duck hunting or something like that, like waiting and like fly fishing, right? Am I understanding that correctly?
That's what I took that.
Yeah.
I was thinking there was spats.
Exactly.
It's like what?
Spats.
Yeah.
This is.
What's a gators?
It is back in the 30s and 40s.
Yeah.
Stylish men
He's not
wore
old enough.
these wraps from their heels around here. And it was a a stylish statement that you were making.
Okay.
The elegant, the sophisticated wore spats or gaiters.
Okay. So it was a way of
It's a
keeping
dress.
the bottom of it's functional thing,
No, pure
Yeah.
vanity.
purely vanity.
Yeah.
Hey, look who
What's-
you're sitting next to.
Well, that's I didn't want to say anything so
Yeah.
direct.
But
I
in
didn't-
today's world,
Yeah, you're a little older
Yeah.
than wearing spats, right?
Let's see.
Old enough to remember my.
Yeah.
So what?
Yeah.
What else were they called?
Spats or gaiters?
Spats.
That's
yeah.
That's
What it looks
yeah.
like.
Nick, this is what gators look like in today's world. though.
Yeah.
Yeah, done
That's
that.
different.
Spats.
SBATS, not ES.
Hold on.
That's space.
Oh, SPAT. What?
SBATS.
Okay. Spats.
There you go.
Oh,
See
there
how
we
fancy
go.
they are?
All right, here we'll bring you over, Elaine. We'll bring you over. You can look at spats with us. The all right, so he's and now the screen's in my way. I can't hit the button I want to hit. Okay, here. Okay, yeah. So like those white shoes were kind of a remnant of that fashion.
They were spectators, they were called.
Okay. All right. So he's wearing something high fashion type of thing. Okay. So all right, that's good.
Fits his personality.
But yes, like likes to be seen.
Yes.
Likes to be seen. Okay, that's good.
Unlike Mick and I.
So like that's that's
But you're safe.
yeah. Okay, so it's
One thing
You
about
told
Bible
us there,
studies,
brother.
you always put me in comfort.
Actually, it's similar to my Bible. I mean, of course, we didn't study it, but similar to my Bible class.
okay. Good.
So it just was crazy and wild.
Yeah. So
Almost with the whole page.
yeah, we almost have. So what do you think of the fat guy who's wearing spats in here? So we have this like kind of picture about him. He doesn't go hungry much. Excuse me. Like what
He
do you
also
think
seems
of
to
it?
be kind of full of himself.
Yeah.
He
pompous, a little bit.
excess. Everything he does is an excess.
Yeah.
And,
So-
and he wants to be noticed for it.
Yeah.
Because I'm better than you, right?
Yeah, he had a lot of opinions.
Yeah. He has a lot of things. It's like so. My pages are not going to be the same, but there's kind of near the beginning of them when he's talking to the bright person from this. So someone from heaven has come to meet with him and basically entreat him. It's like, hey, put aside your vanity, is what we're seeing here, and come with me to heaven. You know, like live over here, trying to entreat him to bring him over. And this guy's response to that is, you become narrow-minded towards the end of your life, haven't you? You know, like but no doubt you've broadened again, which that's the end of the chapter that begins with, well, no, he lives a long way from the bus.
Yeah.
Like I love that because his view, what he thinks is what's heaven to him. And so like, he's like, so when he meets the guy that's coming to greet him from the mountains, from heaven, he's like, oh yeah, when you died there at the end of your life, you became very narrow-minded, but now that you've seen the light, literally, like you've become a little bit more broad, haven't you? And like he's putting on his vision straight onto this guy, which I think is fascinating, and that's something that I do a lot. You know, it's like I have a view of heaven, I have a view of Christianity, and it's like, oh, you are correct when you are in my view, and all that stuff. It's really calling that out.
He follows it right up with, well, what do you mean by that?
Yeah, how do you mean? You know, like that's, well, my dear boy, you were coming to believe in a literal hell and heaven. But wasn't I right? Like that's And oh yes, in the spiritual sense, to be sure, I still believe them in that way, but my sure, dear boy, we're looking for the kingdom, but nothing superstitious or mythological. And that's like, where do you imagine that you have been? That's like, you mean the great town, that's, and I wrote in this paragraph, and we'll read this paragraph, like, oh, you mean the great town? I wrote my note on it is like, he thinks that hell is heaven. And so he's like, oh, the great town with its continual hope of mourning, that we must all live by hope, must we not? With its field for indefinite progress, in a sense. Heaven, if only we have the eyes to see it. That is a beautiful idea.
Just the idea, though.
Yeah, it's just the idea, which kind of shows his hollowness, right? It shows his phantom ghostness, and that he's super content with being just hollow of himself.
Well, but he's also content that he would never have gone to hell. So
Yeah.
where he was had to be heaven. So there's got to be this promise.
That's
Because I would never have been in hell. So it had to be heaven.
yeah.
And then he sees heaven as hell. Well, look at me.
You ask him, what do you call it, though? What did he
Well,
tell
he
him?
goes on, yeah.
Yeah. And and he's like, well, what do you call it? Well, we call it hell. There's no need to be profane, my boy. like that's, and it's very orthodox in the sense of the word. I think what seriously, let's see, how was he saying? That matters ought to be discussed simply and seriously, reverently. It's like, you want to discuss hell reverently? It's like, you've been in hell. But if you go this way, perhaps we can call it purgatory. Like that's, and and then the guy responds, the bright man responds back like, you went there because you're apostate. Are you serious, Dick? Like yeah, perfectly. It's worse than I expected. You really are. You're penalized by, are people penalized? And this is, I think, is really good. Are people penalized for their honest opinions? Like that's an interesting statement, and I think a lot of us sit in that a lot of times where it's like, well, I just have all these opinions about things, and it's like,
In today's
it's like
world.
I'm right, yeah, I'm right about this. Over there, those people are wrong about
Right.
that, but I've had honest opinions. They were honest opinions.
That's honestly what I thought.
Yeah, like that's, and then that makes it, somehow right or anything like that. And, so like, what else is standing out to you in this area here?
There are no sins of intellect.
There are no sins of intellect. Like that's it, and that goes right along with those honest opinions, doesn't it? It's like, as long as I'm asking questions, like that's all. Honest opinions fearlessly followed is another one of those. It's also just a few from where I was reading a little bit ago. He goes, my opinions they were honest. They weren't just honest, they were heroic. I was willing to say and defend the whole chapter. And he talks about the resurrection and how, that's, let's see, how does he describe it? When the doctrine of the resurrection ceased to command itself into critical faculties which God had given me, I openly rejected it. I preached my famous sermon. I defiled the whole chapter. I took every risk. It's like, what risk?
We have to put this also in the frame that this guy is an Episcopal priest.
Yeah.
Right?
Yeah.
He was teaching. And
Yeah.
so he was teaching others
Mm-hmm.
the wrong thing. It's not just your opinion, you're pushing it into others.
Yeah.
So to me, that's part of the problem. It's wrong. I think you have the wrong opinion, you have the wrong opinion.
Yeah.
But that you own that opinion.
Yeah.
Right or wrong. And
And he
good or
was
bad,
teaching
it's
it and all
yours.
that stuff,
He
too.
was teaching to others and teaching them that what they had heard or learned before was wrong.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
This is just the opposite of I don't remember the name of the study now, but I taught a study at a different church where an absolute atheist became an Episcopal priest and taught the right way, just backwards.
Oh, yeah. Yeah.
Very interesting.
Yeah, okay.
In our
Alpha
study of gospel,
Mm-hmm.
I recall there being a caution about there will be those who will preach there will be false
prophets.
False prophets.
Definitely.
Mm-hmm.
This guy is fulfilling that role.
Yeah.
Yes.
With a great yellow seal.
Yeah. Yeah. And I think, and when C.S. Lewis was writing this too, the rise of this type of thinking was very, very popular. Elaine, get your.
Yeah, I just saw something kind of interesting to me, at least. I've got this book on my Kindle, and when I saw that this guy was a bishop, I was looking back at that definition of gaiters.
Yeah.
And one of the definitions was a garment of this kind worn as part of the traditional costume of an Anglican bishop.
Okay, so he would have looked like the part.
Yeah.
Yeah. So like he would have been. So he looks like the church. Like that's actually like that phrase right there. He would have looked like the church. So I think today it would be like someone who, you know, in our classic church, like that's wearing the collar, you know, someone that's wearing the collar, but is just, you know, casting doubts on, I mean, he's casting doubts on the resurrection, you know, like that's, but what I think is interesting about this chapter, in that time, this stuff was very new and catching all kinds of momentum, and all through, and you know, it even caught momentum in the American church bodies and stuff like that too. So it's a good cautionary tale. Now, I think we can pick out what his actual issue is, because I think when we are zealous for any way that isn't just about Jesus and his death and resurrection, you know, I think we become kind of like this guy, you know, that we get zealous for a certain view and all those things.
My question is, how did they make this man a bishop if he had all these views on resurrection did not occur? Seems to me the church would have rejected.
That suggests his cynicism, keeping it close to his vest until he achieved status. Once he became a bishop, then he was free to engage in heresy.
Yeah, and that's when he took every risk, it says.
It says that because he took the risk was likely to come of it, except what actually came: popularity, sales for your books, invitations, and finally the bishop. He became a bishop because of his popularity.
Yeah.
People liked what he said.
Yeah. So that's a subtle. Where is that? I remember reading that.
That's right after the paragraph you read earlier. So
Okay, yeah.
After the resurrection ceased to commend itself.
Yeah. Okay, saying the kind of things that won applause, right?
So this is unworthy of you. What are you suggesting?
Oh yeah. So that whole paragraph I really like there, because it's, you know, we simply find ourselves in contact with a certain with a current of ideas, pushed to it because it seemed modern and successful. And I really like that because it's so easy to just get on board with what is popular at the time, you know, and that's kind of what's being labeled a little bit here. And because he's talking against the resurrection, but it's there's always something popular that's going around that's
He actually called it a disaster in the back, when you get to the end of that chapter.
yeah.
He actually called it, well, if Jesus had grown a little more mature, he would have changed, he would never have been crucified.
Yeah.
No, it just.
Well, he would have opened up in his views and all that stuff.
He would have.
If you think about today's world, I mean, although he's been somewhat discredited, Joel Osteen has a huge following,
Mhm.
massive church, $2 or $3 million a week in offerings, huge following, and yet, what is he teaching? I mean,
Yeah.
it's not something we would recognize as coming from the gospel.
I know, yeah, I knew how popular he was. I didn't know he made that much money, but I never really, I mean, I saw one thing by him only once. I didn't really follow him.
Yeah, well, we lived in Texas for a while, so he was around, but that was before he bought the Rocket Stadium.
Yeah.
He was preaching that God wants you to be happy. He wants you to be rich. He wants you to have all these things. This is what God is teaching us.
Feel good philosophy.
Exactly. And all I'm saying is that there are people, we get sucked up in today's world, we get sucked up into following these people who are leading us to believe that it's going to be better
Mm-hmm.
here, right? Without understanding what pain was of the resurrection. It's, I guess it's, we say it's glory versus cross.
Yeah. And that theologian of glory there is versus theology of the cross. There's a distinction there where our hope is in the cross of Jesus. Like that's where the distinction, and it's so easy to fall into zealousy. So this guy has really fallen into the zealousy for, just free thinking and all that. But it's, I mean, a few years back, I was watching one of our pastors who had fallen. He had no gospel in any sermon, and it was all just law, 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 law. You got to be like this. You got to do all these things, and it's easy to fall into those pitfalls of that zealousy here. And this guy here, he's done it into the progressive, like kind of modernistic view, like what we call historical critical view of all this. To be honest with you guys, when I'm doing the Gospels and I like people to focus on one gospel, there's a light historical critical nature that comes out in trying to synthesize the four gospels to make we're finding the true story of Jesus. So it's like, no, let's keep it down to one, so that we're not creating a story that isn't actually ever written about. That's that we're trying to synthesize all four gospels. And it's kind of going against that thing of what's the real thing? What is Jesus actually doing? And then we get into pitfalls then of where we are like, well, if Jesus hadn't have been so zealous against the Pharisees and all that stuff and gotten older, he may have changed some of his views. is what this guy says. And it's like, well, no, that's not it. I mean, I remember one of the most frustrated times that I ever was. I was reading in my college. We were reading about the reformers after Luther, and it was like Calvin and Zwingli and all these non-Lutheran ones. And Zwingli is the kind of the father of how most non-confessional churches do communion, kind of the symbolic view of communion. And when he is writing his work that is establishing that, he says it's almost as if it should be that Jesus didn't really mean what he said when he said, "This is my body." What Jesus should have said is
What Jesus said is what he said.
Yeah, I know, and I was like,
People are.
Yeah.
You can't say that Jesus is the Word incarnate. He sees himself as God, from heaven.
Yeah.
And if he says something, that's how it is.
And I remember being so frustrated in the library of my college. I was like, this doesn't make any sense.
You know what that reminds me? Actually, it reminds me of the serpent tempted Eve, did God really say not to eat it? Did he really say this? Or
Yeah.
are you sure? Are you really? What if you did? How do you know?
Were you there?
People, yeah. Or, the devil, these are tricks of the devil.
Yeah.
It's like someone trying to talk you out of believing in Jesus completely.
And I will say, and this is, I got to be careful how I say this. Like, do what? Yeah, the lawyers say, oh, I got to be careful to say this because it's, to me, as I read this, I almost sound like the bishop in here when I'm saying this. And so, like, there's some risk. I'm taking every risk. Like that. It's.
And that's why you pay me the big.
Yeah. Like that's. But I worry, and I've talked about this a lot in this class, that we have swung all the way to the other end. Not all the way to the other end, where we are like, oh, these groups over here that are into the historical critical, that are doing what this guy is doing. But we now have taken zealousy in our literal reading, and that's why that's why I kind of lean into that zealousy, where people are like, oh, we've taken this literal reading of this, and I'm not actually going to read that text, but I'm going to find out how you believe about it and what. So we use like the story of Jonah, and it's like, did Jonah actually get swallowed by a whale? I was asked that question constantly, when I was coming up into seminary, but no one ever made sure that I understood what the story was about. And I think that's that other side of it, that it's like, well, I'm making every risk and standing on the literal nature of this, and we don't actually understand why in the story was it written, And that's, I don't know, like that's, as I was reading this, I was like, gosh, I got to be careful though, because I don't want to be like this where you start going down these points. I don't know, this paragraph begins with, of course, having allowed oneself to drift, unresisting, unpraying, all that stuff, that we end up going all the way to there's no longer we believe any faith. That like a drunkard reaches to the point at which for a moment he actually believes that another glass will not harm him. That we've gotten high on our own supply so deep that we're like, yeah, I'll be all right. Am I making any sense there? I don't know.
You are.
Like that's like, and it's for this one, it's like, gosh, you got to be careful, and like everything has got to be pointing to the reason why the whole scriptures are written, for the Father, Son, and Holy Spirit, and the Son that was crucified and rose.
I would suggest that your concern about zealotry may be inhibiting you because you don't want to be seen as a zealot, but your beliefs may in fact be genuine. So don't be so fast to criticize yourself as a zealot.
Do I have honest opinions?
I
I was impressed by this college statement, just ahead of that.
Oh, yeah?
In college, we wrote what would get us a good grade.
Yeah.
It had nothing to do with the truth, just what would get us a good grade.
Yeah. And there's an astuteness to that.
Yeah.
That we cannot push over.
And I resemble that.
Yeah. There's an astuteness to that where there is a flow in the world, and that flow is constantly moving and shifting, and it's easier in the flow. It's, and that's why we're always in danger of being in one of those flows, and I think that's why constantly going back, like being zealous for Christ. Kind of, that's what Paul talks about. Like, I'm not zealous for all this activity, but I'm zealous for Christ. And that's and what he's doing. And yeah.
Acknowledging that there is a place for zeal.
Yeah. Well, and that's,
And by the way, happy Ascension Day.
oh yeah, it is Ascension Day. It is Ascension
I
Day.
can send you a card.
We got a card today from our daughter-in-law. France, believe it or not, this is a holiday in France.
Yeah. Yes, it is.
Businesses are closed, banks are closed.
Oh man, like that's good.
Just a thought, maybe we should make it a holiday here. People think about the Ascension more, which I think they should.
Exactly.
Yeah. Like so that's.
I read a book in college that was, yeah, you could have really been in trouble now.
Go ahead.
But it proposed the idea that Jesus didn't die, that he continued to live, and it was talking about the difference the world would be if he had had a longer life. This guy's talking.
Yeah, this is the same thing, kind of a thing.
This
You know what?
more of a longer ministry role that he didn't get to reach as many people.
I read a book, and the Roman soldier, centurion, whatever, who threw the spear into Jesus' side, he threw a spear into it. The spear is called the Holy Lance because it touched Jesus' body. It touched it, so it's holy. It touched it. And there's anyway, make a long story short, centurion who actually threw it, he knew Jesus, he had killed him. He knew it. And afterwards, when Jesus was resurrected, the same centurion who threw, he saw Jesus afterwards. He saw him after his resurrection. He saw him ascend. When he saw him, he repented. He actually, I don't know if people knew this, but he actually became a Christian. That's what it.
Yeah.
He actually became. His name started with a C, but I forget what it was.
Oh man, I don't know.
I don't know if that's well. It's in the book I read.
Yeah.
It was probably Chris.
Great, Chris.
Wasn't that? It was with a C. It was like Cornelius or something.
Yeah. There's a lot of fiction out there.
Well, I don't know, because I mean, it's tough to think he was still alive, and because Jesus came back 40 days, with the disciples. He may have saw him or ascend, He was in the area.
I think it's not just you that looks at this and says, am I falling into this category?
Yeah.
Am I becoming zealous for the wrong thing?
Mm-hmm.
It's easy to do in today's world.
It is.
It's easy these days, but it's also easy today to fall behind.
And so, and I love how the solid person that he's talking to, it's like, you have seen how you are in sight of heaven. So they're kind of on the outskirts and they can see the mountains. He's like, will you now repent and believe? And that is such a good line there. And the ghost is almost taken aback. It's like, what? Why do I need to repent? Why do I need to repent? And it's like, and he's like, my dear boy, I believe already. We may not be perfectly agreed, but you have completely misjudged me. You not realize that my religion is very real and a very precious thing to me. And again, it's all just residing in himself. Like, he doesn't believe anything outside of himself. And he's like, will you come with me? Will you come with me to the mountains? And then I love this. It's going to hurt at first. Until your feet are hardened. And the reality is harsh to the feet of shadows. But will you come? And he's like, well, what's the plan? That's like, I'm okay to consider it.
He wanted a guarantee.
Yeah. Like that's, I can promise you none of these things, no sphere of youthfulness. You are not needed there at all. No scope of your talents, only forgiveness for having perverted them. No, all these things. And I love that because, man, the first time I read this, and it changed my whole concept of evil and hell and all that stuff. And what C.S. Lewis is saying is that hell's that place where you get everything you want and you're just miserable, but you keep getting what you want. And he's pointing that out again. He's like, you want to be big and important, and the only thing there is forgiveness. And like that's over there, and it's such a vision. It's a vision that was so totally kind of sold to me, when I was younger and all that stuff. And yeah.
It reminds me of the expectations of the disciples saying, when do you
When are
become
you gonna be-
king?
Right.
When do we get this rock and
Yeah.
roll going?
Yeah.
And
Yeah.
in the book, you're not going to get any of that good stuff.
Seems like also when I forget which disciples it was, they want to know who would be the greatest.
Yeah, James and John. Yeah. Like it's like who's going to be the greatest in there?
He took a little child and said, "Hey,
Yeah.
this is what's gonna be."
Yeah. Like it's just, exactly.
I still dig the helicopter mother.
Oh, yeah, when we're coming up here.
No. In the biblical.
Oh yeah.
Promoting her sons.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Jesus, can I have a moment of your time?
And I love, he's like, you think that because hitherto you have experienced truth only with abstract intellect, I will bring you where you can taste it like honey and be embraced by it as a bridegroom, and your thirst shall be quenched. Yeah, and then
I'm glad you picked out those because I've got them starring.
Oh, good.
Yeah.
Hitting all the good stuff, right? Hitting all this good stuff. And then the solid guy says, listen, said the white spirit, once you were a child, once you knew what inquiry was for.
41.
There was a time. Is it 41 for you guys too?
Yeah.
Oh, it's 41 in my book.
Oh, is it?
Oh, well, I mean,
Are
once
we?
you,
Is
once
it
you
actually
print
the same?
something,
You just hit 41 now.
once you print something, it's the same. Starts off
Oh, it's the same.
Oh, really? Yeah.
It's the same page. Way to go, Harper.
Same size font.
Yeah, same size font. That's way to go. All right, that makes it way easier.
Yeah.
So, because my book is old. My book is old.
Yeah, different one.
Yeah, and so, all right. So yeah, page 41. Right in the middle of it, like you knew what inquiry was for when you asked questions and you wanted answers. And I think that right there is what we're really getting at with this guy, is that he just wants the concepts. He wants the nature of what he can see, but he actually doesn't actually want the real. Says he does. He just wants to think about it.
He put away childish things.
Yeah.
That's the first thing he said.
Yeah. Quotes the scripture, right?
Right.
It's and then the solid guy. Let's see, well, what does the going from the bottom of 41 into 42? I guess the last chapter, the last sentence of that top paragraph is like, religion and speculative questions are surely on a different level. And the solid one was that we know nothing of religion here. We think only of Christ. We know nothing of speculation. Come and see. I'll bring you to eternal fact and the father of all facthood. It's so good. And then what does the guy do after that?
He did object.
Yeah. And he's like, well, I can't actually go because I'm reading one of my papers.
God is a fact.
Reading one of my papers down in hell.
Yeah, gotta go back.
Got to go back. And what the actual paper is about, something we've been talking about here, is like what a different Christianity would have been if the founder had reached his full stature. I shall end up pointing out how this deepens the significance of the crucifixion by saying that it shouldn't have happened at all. When one feels for the first time what a disaster it was, what a tragic waste. And it kind of just goes on from there. See, how much time do we have? We got like 10 minutes. Like that. Does anyone have any thoughts on this guy?
We're really ripping through this.
Yeah, this one's
He's certainly full of himself.
Yeah.
yeah. And kind of going for all that. So I want to get into 6 here for just a little bit, chapter 6. So we're not really introduced to anyone specifically, but it's kind of a chapter of beauty and kind of what it's like for this guy to experience the creation but not fit into it. But I think his understanding of the creation and kind of wanting to be with it, kind of shows that he's working himself towards the mountains. That he may be a phantom, a ghost himself from hell, but now he's starting to almost like the solid nature. He even finds himself walking on water at one point. Yeah, like that's, and that's,
It's a little trouble walking on that water though, didn't they?
yeah. The water ended up being very slippery.
He said it's very smooth.
Yeah, until.
And refreshing.
Yeah,
We reached the rapids.
The phone comes up, strikes me.
yeah. The foams, and he's just walking up on the water in the brook there. And then he sees the waterfall.
Yeah.
And when is the waterfall described in the way?
46.
46? Oh, your doctor's calling.
Yeah. He's checking to make sure I'm still alive.
Okay, well, that's good. Okay, so what was the image of the waterfall? When is it page 46 when it describes what the waterfall is?
Apples of gold gleam through the leaves.
Yeah, like he's got these giant apples there, and it describes it as like one that was crucified, right? Is that later? Oh,
Yeah,
it is.
it's a little bit later.
It's a little bit later. But he sees that huge waterfall, and on Earth, no waterfall could be like that. And then there's these like huge shadows. The shadow of the branches now covered it. Let's see here. Oh, I remember. So he sees that ghost that's under the shadows, and the only way he could really see the ghost is when it got out of the light.
Yeah.
I thought that was a short little distinction of like only in like where light is kind of hidden from it, you see that shadow. I thought that was kind of good there.
It's interesting, the description though. He says the noise was so gigantic, was like giants' laughter.
Yeah.
Revelry of those, of a whole college of giants together laughing and dancing and singing and roaring. And I never stood at the base of a waterfall, a big one, especially.
Yeah. Like it's in how C.S. Lewis keeps, it's almost like the lions. There's no threat in the lions, even though he's kind of scared of them. And this waterfall is kind of the same way, where it's this grand.
It says you could hear it for 20 miles.
This grand thing of joy. The creation is expressing its joy. Now, what do you think of the? I liked in the story how the ghost couldn't get through the lilies.
Oh yeah.
The lilies are too substantial for him. He can't get by them, and so he's like trying to go through the lilies. And I love lilies are such a soft thing to us. And yeah, in the outskirts of heaven here, like they're so much more substantial than the ghosts. And then, but that one ghost is trying. First, he tries to get like a basket of apples, then he's down to 2. And now he's down to 1. And
can't hardly pick that up.
And it's the same guy who wanted to bring something substantial from the outskirts of heaven to come bring back to hell. And then the voice says, this is the middle of page 49, "Fool, put it down," said a great voice suddenly. It was unlike any other voice that he had heard so far. It was thunderous yet liquid. With an appalling certainty, I knew that the waterfall itself was speaking. And now, though it did not cease to look like a waterfall, it was also a bright angel who stood like one crucified against the rocks and poured himself perpetually down towards the forest with loud joy. What baptism illusions without ever saying it, the watering the earth with the nature of the sacrifice of Christ, without saying it, it's this beauty. That's probably one of my favorite chapters in the whole thing. That this waterfall looks like one crucified. It's just creating all this. It's beautiful.
It's, as I said earlier, it's a wonderful book of illusion.
Yeah.
It's
I like the reference to loud joy,
Yeah.
Yeah.
pouring himself out, loud joy.
Yeah. It's so good. And he says, "Fool, put it down. You cannot take it back. There's no room for that in hell." And to ruin the story for you a little bit, Chris, what we end up finding is hell at the beginning of the book is this unending ghetto that stretches on for millions of miles. And what we see at the end of the book is that hell is shown to be just a small little crack in outside of hell. And that's the allusion to it, that is like there's no room for that. Like, because even that small apple can't fit inside of hell there. And like it's just a beautiful imagery. I love it. And so the ghost leaves, and yeah, that's basically that chapter. It's a short chapter. What else from that chapter did you guys think was interesting in chapter 6?
I marked down Proverbs 25:11. It says, "A word fitly spoken is like apples of gold in a picture of silver." When I read that,
Yeah.
about the golden apples,
Mhm.
so it was made like that was him speaking.
Yeah.
And I just kind of put those two together.
Yeah.
I'm not sure.
No, I think it's great. Well, and it's also like there's definitely creation imagery there too,
Right.
with the tree of knowledge of good and evil, and like that's just like the Garden of Eden, like in this water and all that. There's all this is creation imagery that's going through there.
Does an amazing job
Yeah.
bringing that all in.
And so like it's just like with gladness and this waterfall looking like one crucified that's going for that. And there's no room for that. There's no room for any of this heavenly stuff in hell, which I think goes back to our good old bishop, wearing his spats. Is that what they were called? Wearing his spats, wearing his gaiters. That there's no room for the actual crucifixion and in hell at all. And so he was more comfortable down there. And so that's and there's nothing but forgiveness in heaven. And that's after reading this a few times now, that's the biggest thing I think I've adjusted, and also just kind of reading the Gospels through like we have, because really since I've been a pastor here, we've done a ton of study into the Gospels and how much forgiveness is the point. That God forgives.
Yeah. Remember one of the disciples asked Jesus one time, "How many times should I forgive?
Yeah.
How many times? 7 or how many times?"
And then the heaven is this place of just unending forgiveness, and this is a hard thing, but if I'm holding resentment or forgiveness from something, will I be happy in a place of unending forgiveness? That's hard.
I had struggled with this get everything you want concept.
Yeah.
If you don't know you're in hell, then how can it be hellish?
Mm. Yeah.
Like this guy, this spats, and he doesn't recognize, and I think that is for me the difficulty. If you don't know you're in hell, then there's no consequence of your
Mm-hmm.
or anything. It's an existence, it's a parallel universe, but unlike the Catholics, which never let you forget hellfire and brimstone.
Just for fun,
Yeah.
this is the Anglican gator.
Oh, okay. That's what he would have looked like.
That's what he would have looked like.
Oh, okay. All right.
It's an outer garment that was worn by bishops and apparently by deans and editors.
Okay. Yeah.
My comment is it's just parallel. It's something that's troubled me.
Well, and I think that's what this book does so well, is that it's it puts it. Everybody, all the characters we meet are in some way, by their actions or who they are trying to save themselves. And
Only Jesus saves.
Yeah, exactly.
But all of those characters are us.
Yeah.
At some level, we are every one of those characters.
Yeah, and we exist with all these things, and it's calling us back to the light, and it's like, okay, well, can I put aside the desire for more notoriety, the desire for more, oh, this has got to be the way it is, or like that's and focus on Christ and forgiveness, and that's hard. It's hard, and so and that's where we sit. It's like, okay, yeah, we are forgiven by Christ, and this unending waterfall that looks like one that is crucified, that is just joy and happiness, that's just feeding the creation, and we see it.
I don't know whether the designer took a license or C.S. Lewis did it, but there's flames.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And there are no flames.
There's no flames in that story.
Yeah. I don't know whether this is to get your attention as a purchaser, that it's about hell, and then you get sucked into it.
I have a feeling, yeah.
Yeah.
I'm not too. I mean, this cover of this book is very hellish, but it's every one of the books during this series look the same, all have the same color palette, all that. But I think, yeah, it is funny. I think
It's using red. There's the in the background. There's more hellfire.
Yeah. It's one of my favorite comedians, this guy named Pete Holmes, and he's talking in one of his bits. He's talking about hell, and he's like, it's like, how does he word it? But like hell, if let's say you're being just tortured by little crabs, and they're just slowly taking little chunks out of your skin, like for all eternity, like little crabs and all that stuff. But let's say you get like a break, and there's you take it over like scalding hot water that you got to drink, but there's other people who go around there, and it's like, oh, how are you being tortured, and all that stuff, and the joke is, he's like, you're just sitting around talking about all the torture. He's like, that's my view of heaven, like that, being able to commiserate the suffering. And I was like, oh, that's funny. But it's, yeah, like this book for me, it's like the law. It puts up a mirror up to us and goes like, will you repent? And go back to Christ, go back to that waterfall, go back to the heavenly realms. And so, yeah, so we'll keep on going next week. So we'll start, we adequately did chapter 6, right?
I think so.
Yeah, I think so too. And so, all right, we'll start with 7, and 2 or 3 ahead, we'll get through those. So for everyone that's watching on YouTube, thank you for joining us today.